World Rugby's chief executive just said the quiet part out loud. This schedule is not sustainable. And for Springbok fans, that was never news. It was simply the first time one of the most powerful people in the sport admitted it publicly. That matters, because when the man at the top starts using words like that, it means the problem has gone beyond private complaints and into open crisis. This is no longer a small welfare issue or a couple of tired players needing more rotation. This is a system asking the best rugby players in the world to survive a calendar that was never built to protect them. The roots of the problem go back to South Africa's move out of Super Rugby and into the United Rugby Championship. That decision made sense. Super Rugby had become stretched, awkward, expensive, and increasingly difficult to sustain in its old form. South Africa needed a competition that offered better opposition, better commercial value, and a more realistic future. Before we jump in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon, because the next video might be the one everyone else talks about, and you don't want to be the one who missed it. The URC gave them that. It brought South African franchises into a stronger environment, gave the domestic game more weight, and helped create a proper professional pathway. The Bulls became a real force. The Stormers won the competition. The Sharks and Lions found new life in a structure that felt more stable than the one that came before it. So the move worked, but it also created a new problem that the game never fully solved. The URC runs on a Northern Hemisphere calendar. The Rugby Championship still sits in the Southern Hemisphere international window. That means the Springboks' top players are now trapped between two different systems that were never designed to fit together cleanly. One season ends, another one begins, and in between there is almost no real breathing space. That is how you end up with an 11-month season. Not a long season, not a heavy season, an 11-month season. And that changes everything. Think about what that means in practice. A player finishes one club campaign, moves into international duty, travels, trains, plays at the highest level, and then almost immediately starts preparing for the next club season. There is no real off-season, no proper reset, no genuine window where the body gets to recover and the mind gets to switch off. That is not elite performance management. That is wear and tear at scale. Some players in Japan have a different rhythm because the Japanese calendar gives them a more usable rest period. They can recover properly, come back fresher, and enter national camp in better physical shape. But the players based in Europe do not get that same advantage. They are the ones carrying the heaviest burden, and that creates a real imbalance inside the same national squad. The scary part is that everyone close to the game knows this. Coaches know it, players know it, medical staff know it, administrators know it, and now World Rugby's leadership has said it out loud too. The calendar is not just inconvenient, it is unsustainable. That word matters, because unsustainable does not mean slightly imperfect. It means the system is operating beyond what it can responsibly support. It means the current structure cannot keep going forever without producing damage. And in rugby, that damage shows up in injuries, fatigue, burnout, shortened careers, and players having to operate at a level of physical intensity that the human body can only handle for so long. That is why the obvious solution keeps coming back to the same idea: move the Rugby Championship to line up with the Six Nations. On paper, it makes complete sense. If the Southern Hemisphere's major test competition ran in the same window as the Northern Hemisphere's, the global calendar would instantly become cleaner. Springbok players based in Europe would no longer be forced into such brutal overlap. They would play international rugby in a window that already exists for test matches, then return to club rugby with a more manageable load. It would be better for the players. It would be better for the product. It would be better for fans. It would be better for the long-term health of the sport. But that solution runs into the same wall every time. New Zealand will not agree. And that's where the frustration really starts. Because this is not a debate about whether the calendar needs fixing. Most serious people in rugby already accept that it does. This is a debate about power, about whose calendar matters most, about which nations are willing to compromise and which ones expect everyone else to adapt to them. New Zealand's domestic structure, broadcast model, and rugby culture are all built around the current setup. Changing the Rugby Championship would require them to make major adjustments, and they haven't been convinced that those compromises are worth it. The result is simple: no agreement, no change. That's the brutal truth. Without New Zealand, nothing moves. So the proposal sits there, discussed in meetings, mentioned on podcasts, raised in conferences, supported in principle, but blocked in practice. And while the administrators delay, the players keep paying the price. That's what makes this so maddening for South African fans. South Africa adapted when the old system stopped working. They took a difficult but sensible step, moved into the URC, and built something stronger. They did their part to protect the future of the game. Now the same kind of flexibility is being asked from others, and the answer keeps coming back: no. It's hard not to see the pattern. South Africa adjusted to a changing reality. Others expect the rest of the sport to bend around them. And in the middle of all that, the players are the ones carrying the load. Rossi Erasmus has done an extraordinary job managing the chaos. His rotation policy, squad depth, and workload management have allowed the Springboks to stay at the top of World Rugby despite the strain. That's not a small achievement. It's one of the reasons South Africa continues to dominate even under punishing conditions. But even the best coach in the world can't solve a broken calendar. He can spread the workload, he can protect players where possible, he can make smart calls about who plays and who rests, but he cannot create a proper offseason out of thin air. He cannot turn an 11-month season into a healthy one. That is the limit of coaching. It can manage the damage, it cannot erase the cause. And the cause is structural. That's why the new Nations Championship, which World Rugby is pushing as a more meaningful global competition, is only a partial answer. It's a positive step. It gives more shape and consequence to the July and November windows. It helps international rugby feel more connected throughout the year. But it doesn't solve the main issue. It doesn't fix the clash between club rugby in the north and test rugby in the south. It doesn't remove the 11-month grind. So, yes, it's progress, but it's not enough. The bigger danger is what happens when a sport keeps normalizing overload. At first, it looks manageable. Then it becomes routine. Then it becomes expected. Players adapt, coaches adjust, and fans become used to seeing stars run themselves into the ground. But just because the damage is gradual doesn't make it harmless. Injuries accumulate, fatigue builds, recovery gets worse, careers shorten, and some players never get back to the physical peak they deserve because the system took too much from them too early. That's the real cost of this calendar. Not just tired bodies, but lost years. Not just bad weekends, but shortened careers. Not just pressure, but erosion. And here's the uncomfortable part. South Africa's success has helped hide the problem. The Springboks keep winning. They keep producing world-class players. They keep setting the standard. They keep surviving the pressure better than almost anyone else in the game. But that shouldn't be used as proof that the system works. It should be used as proof that South African rugby is extraordinary. Those are not the same thing. Capability isn't consent. The fact that the Springboks can survive this schedule doesn't mean they should have to. The fact that they can keep dominating doesn't mean the burden is fair. The fact that they're built for adversity doesn't mean the sport should manufacture more of it. What World Rugby admitted last week was bigger than a scheduling complaint. It was a public acknowledgement that the current structure is failing the players it depends on most. The calendar is broken, the load is too high, the fix exists, and the biggest obstacle isn't logic, it's politics. That's why this conversation is only going to get louder, because the longer the game delays a proper solution, the obvious the cost becomes. And eventually, the people making the decisions will have to answer for why the best players in the world were asked to carry a system that was never designed with them in mind. The Springboks will probably keep coping. That's what they do. They adapt, they absorb pressure, they win anyway. But the fact that they can survive this schedule doesn't make the system acceptable.